Peace and blessings, and welcome back to the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast, where we introduce you to your future favorite artist today. But today, we have somebody that's like me. That's right, because I'm the whole damn show. And I got somebody with me who loves hip hop and has his own show on a radio station. Please introduce yourself to the people.
What's going on, y'all? First of all, I want to say the name is All Mental, Anthony Chin, Revlo. You know, you see me, I'm the man that's everywhere. Shout out to the BBox Radio crew. Shout out Roxanne, the station manager and owner. Shout out to my DJ Polarity. Also shout out to my peoples, A Sharp, DJ Absurd. Also shout out to my homegirl Sheena, who has a clothing line, House of Couture, whose hat I'm wearing. You can follow her on Instagram and all over the place. Very inspirational. Her name's Sheena Cruz, has her own business. And yes, I go by the name of All Mental. Find me on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm a hip hop host, hip hop historian, just a fan that loves the culture.
Shout out to my camera that's going in and out on its own. I ain't even moving. But this is going to be audio and visual. And what Heritage Hip Hop likes to do is not only tell the story and allow people to tell their stories of the hip hop culture, but we want to document people's place in the culture as well. Tell us, when did you first started getting into hip hop and what made it blossom to you?
Damn, that's a very good question. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in East Flatbush. My parents are West Indian from Trinidad and Tobago. Hip hop was always around me from way back when. I first started getting hip hop when I first heard LL Cool J's radio. When I heard that, I was like, what is this? And then as a kid, I got to see movies like Beat Street, but I didn't understand it until I got older. You know what I mean? When I got to see Crush Groove. And I got to watching Wild Style. But again, as I got older, I started watching it. I'm about to be 40 next week. So, you know, like they say, black don't crack, Asians stay amazing.
Salute.
But more importantly though, and it's been in my family, my cousin Webified, who was down with EO Dub, he's an MC, and my other cousin Vinyl Richie, he was actually the tour DJ for Rhyme Fest. So it's basically in my family. I didn't get the creative end of the genes because I tried rapping and I sucked. I'll be the first to tell you that. Hey, it is what it is. So I realized everyone would always tell me I had a good voice for radio and I like to talk to people and I was very outgoing. So when I went off to college at Kane University, I majored in mass communication and history. And then from there on, I fell in love with the radio and I like putting together shows and events. And that's how I got into this.
Yeah, that's dope because, hey, everybody who gets into hip hop or loves hip hop tries to rap. Everybody. And it's called the tree of life. And when you go through your tree of life, you start to prune your tree and cut off branches. So you're seeing that maybe being on the microphone as an MC wasn't your way of going at it, but you truly MC'd by being a master of the production ceremony as well.
Exactly. And I also wanted to tell you, I never picked up DJing because I could never afford the equipment. And so but eventually I will, and I have something in the works with that. But okay. Go on it, by the way.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question. The most satisfying thing a rapper or MC can do is create a body of work that somebody can listen to and enjoy. How is that just like what you do when you're on your show and you're creating bodies of work through thought or bodies of work through contemporary conversation that will last as long as the conversation stays alive?
When I do that, it's because I try to find questions that I want people when they leave the interview to be like, wow, I learned something new about that artist or something I didn't know. Even if it's a person that somebody doesn't know, they can say, wow, I know something about him. They got a better understanding of who that person is. And I think that that's very important. You're getting to know that individual and find out who they are and what they're about and what they represent.
That's interesting because a lot of people don't want to be themselves. And hip hop is also always known for keeping it real, but a lot of people are really full of shit. So how do you get a person to open up to be real and not just be the character they want to portray on their music?
You have to understand that people will show who they are when you really sit down and talk to them. That's why my father once told me this. My father was a very good listener. May he rest in peace. He taught me, and I'm one that likes to talk a lot, but I had to also learn it's good to be outspoken and talk a lot, but you have to also listen. And you can't always jump the gun because a lot of times when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. That's why it's very important you have to listen. Remember this, the human body, we were given 5 senses: 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 hands, and 1 mouth. As human beings, we use our mouth the most, and it gets us into the most trouble. If we use the other parts of our body more often, we would all be further in life, myself is included. This is why listening plays a role. It's one thing to talk and one mouth, you have to also listen and watch people, because they will reveal themselves eventually.
Yeah, I believe that when they say actions speak louder than words, consistency is the language of truth. That's what I believe.
I agree.
So let's talk about consistency. Since 1973, which is supposed to be the birth of hip hop as we know it today, which I don't believe that's the birth of hip hop, but from the birth of what we call hip hop today, hip hop has consistently been labeled as outcast opinion of American culture, which has grown into become world culture. Why do you think hip hop has always outcasted, and why does hip hop even outcast itself from its own people?
To be honest with you, because it came from the streets, from the hood, from the slums, and we were always outcast, especially as people of color in the United States. And this is why. And so when they say, "Well, how come they don't know how to act right?" But we don't come like, look at where we come from. But as we mature and we get older, we take on different views and different ideologies and different ideas. And you have to also understand, this is the people have to realize that as people of color in this country, Blacks and Hispanics, we've been labeled as outcasts from the time we landed in this country. Well, actually, we were dragged here, but that's a whole other topic, a discussion. My whole point goes that.
But good you brought it up. Go ahead.
But my whole point of it is that we've always been outcasted the culture. This was something they didn't want no parts of it. This is why when people have the debates of, and when I say this is that, yes, it's a universal culture now. We accept any and everybody. But the culture was created by Blacks and Hispanics out of New York City. That's who created this culture, number one. And now at the same time, don't get me wrong, I've met many Caucasians, many Asians, many white people, Caucasian meaning white, who do have love and passion for the hip hop culture and who do show more appreciation for the culture than some people of color. But because don't get it twisted, you can be Black or Hispanic in this culture, and you can also be a culture vulture. Don't get it twisted, I tell people. Because you have many Black and Hispanic people who are just culture vultures, who are in it for the right reasons.
I believe that too. That's why I say hip hop is full of participants and not artists, because it's a lot of artists take their time to perfect it, and a lot of participants join it to make money. And unfortunately, that's how it goes when things get corporatized and go to the next level. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what happened with hip hop when it went to that next level with the corporation, and when we had to start doing what they told us to do. Back when, if you look at some of the old school flyers, when they were doing stuff at like the PAL in the Bronx, up at the Boys Club on Hoe Avenue in the South Bronx, some of the first early parties. Something to get into some of those parties, only like $3, maybe $5 at the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, back in 1973, $5 went a lot further than $5 does today. Don't get it twisted now. At the same time, because back in 1973, if a person was making $5 an hour, that was good money back then. I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I want to not take it too much to the inner city. I want to talk about the genuine love and inspiration of hip hop, because biblically speaking, and why I say hip hop as we know it today is started in 1973. Hip hop, I believe, started way back in time. And the reason why I say it is because one thing about hip hop that we always refer to as the pain of the people not being heard. And if you think about even in biblical times, with Christ, if you believe in Jesus, you believe in Yeshua, Yahweh or Isa, whatever religion it is that you want to relate to, I can have that conversation. But within that context, when he taught the disciples before they became apostles, the people said, how were these poor men knowledgeable in the scriptures as the learned men, the doctors of the doctrine? And that's what makes that hip hop to me, is because the people that make the culture what it is, not the culture being made and then people are bred in it. You know what I'm saying? How do you feel about that?
And this is what I mean. The culture, and this is what I tell people, it came from from the park jams when dudes was playing the break beat and at the park jam and the same stuff like that, dudes was break dancing, and then because it started behind the DJ. Hip hop you have to also remember DJ Kool Herc, and the first MC, as they say, was Coke LaRock. Now, my whole thing with this is that people have to understand the MC job is to hype up the DJ. And this is what I try to tell people, that when we was at the park jams and it was spinning the break beat and they perfected it. Shout out to Grand Wizard Theodore who invented the scratch. I tell this to people that these are things that's really what it was, just a party. And it was underprivileged youth. Because back in the early 1970s, the South Bronx was like, whoa, you know what I mean? It is what it is. And this is what I tell people. But even geographically speaking, where they say the first party took place on Sedgwick and Cedar, that's not the South Bronx. It's actually the West Bronx, geographically speaking. But that's a whole other topic of discussion as well. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, I mean, even with that though, I mean, Grandmaster Flowers is known from having the jams in the park, you know, and that was before Grandmaster Kool Herc and Grandmaster Flowers. I call him a Grandmaster because if that's the highest level you can give, then the originator of what we call today has to be a Grandmaster. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong though. But even with that, knowing the history of hip hop is one thing. Living the appreciation of hip hop is different. When did you realize that you were hip hop, and how do you celebrate it on a daily basis?
Brother, I celebrate the culture every day in the way I walk, the way I talk, the way I dress. I'm always out here. So I'm striving to be the best human being I can be as an individual. And what I mean by this is that I can have a conversation with somebody on hip hop all day, every day. But that's who I am. Some people can never understand that. I just go, I put my passion into it. I do my research, my history, because I was also a history major in school when I was at Kane University, my alma mater. So this is why, and I just like the whole art form of it. I tell that to people. A lot of people just get into saying they're going to be rich or want to get this and that. I understand money, we need that to survive. Don't get it twisted. And I work a 9 to 5. I have no shame or no blame in that. And I have no problem going out there doing what I have to do. But at the same time, I really do this because I love what I do. I like this art form and this culture. That's how I get back to the culture with my radio show. And just being a fan, out to events, going out to the shows, going out to the different parties, and just showing love.
Let's define art. How do you define art?
I mean, art is just somebody being artistic. It can be from music, movies, acting. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not the most artistic individual. I'm not. That's why, and what I mean by this is that as far as being an MC or being a graph writer and drawing in that aspect, some people naturally have that in them, is what I'm saying. Some people are born with that. It's like, and this is like why I told you earlier when I said that you see people's true colors come out for who they are. That's why I tell people, remember this in life, a liar has no memory. Remember that, because you got to keep covering the lie each time. It's like, well, you said this before, you said that before. This is why you have to be careful what you say. You got to know what you said. And through art is just life. It's expression. Some people are naturally just creative. I have my cousin John, he's a naturally creative dude who did my early flyers for my earlier shows back in the day. He had that in him. From a child, he knew how to draw. Some people, you have that in you. You know what I mean? You can't, that's not something you can teach. Graffiti, on the other hand, you can teach that. A lot of people don't know that. Because there are a lot of people who do graph that can't draw for shit. But if you can draw and do graph, you have something very special and unique.
I want to combat you on what you said, because I could be wrong. For me, art is a craft or skill. So it doesn't have to be, you could be an artist. Okay,
well, my fault. I take that then. I kind of take that back in that aspect. Okay. And I do apologize.
No, you're good. Just go ahead, bro.
When you put it in that aspect, because if you're going to say it's a craft, a skill, because then anything could be art then. Exactly. Making food could be an art.
Exactly. That's why I don't want you to diminish what you said about yourself, about what you could not do. One thing that in the inner city communities, we have a serious disease called forced humility. Because being humble and being forcefully humble is two different things. And like, look, me and you probably put on the hottest beat right now and couldn't come up with the hottest line at all. You know what I'm saying? You can rap, I can rap, don't mean we're MCs though. See what I'm saying?
Right.
But There are people who can do all the hottest bars in the world, but can't do what we do. So
Agreed.
that is an art. That is a
That's
skill.
true.
That is a craft. And I grew up with people telling me everything I could not be or everything I'm not, but nobody celebrated who I am or what I was to become. So I don't want you to, I love the knowledge that you have of things, but I'm not going to let you diminish yourself through forced humility. You are one hell of a radio host.
Thank
You are
you.
one hell of an orator because your conversation is provoking, not just wordy. You know what I'm saying? So I am going to stop you and tell you, hip hop is about not only the MC and the DJ, not only the graffiti, not only the dancer, but it is the art of self and having self in the culture. You know what I'm
Agreed.
saying?
Agreed.
So what is the biggest gift you bring to hip hop that keeps hip hop alive, not only within you, but outside of you to inspire somebody else?
I'd honestly say just the knowledge I drop on people. And just when I'm on the radio show with DJ Polarity, we try to just give people brand new music every week. Shout out to my man Polarity again, by the way. We try to give people brand new music, stuff they might not hear on Top 40 radio, an artist they might not know but hear about. And then in my life, I just try to drop jewels on people and try to keep an open mind and also listen to people. Because I've learned that as I got older, you can't just jump the gun and make assumptions. And that's what many of us do. And we get ourselves into trouble. You have to always listen to people and hear someone out, find out what's going on. And a lot of us, we just go and say, oh, well, this person did me dirty. I'm like, did you ask the person? Did you find out what was happening? But no, we quick to just go. We just run the miles and want to go. And you can't don't get me wrong, we're all going to have our moments in time. I'm still a work in progress. I'm not perfect. I don't plan to be, and I don't want to be.
Whoa, but you can be. Don't ever think you can't be perfect.
In certain aspects, yes, but through life,
no, in totality, you can be perfect. Perfect does not mean flawless. Perfect just means balanced. You can be balanced. And because you acknowledge that you're not, that's perfection. But go ahead though.
Wow. Wow, damn, I feel wow. You done boosted my ego and my confidence. Shit.
Well, look, let's get into it, because you know what? I think people like when me and you speak, and they try to get us to go head to head for so long. And I'm like, I like dude, and that's not what I do. And I'm sure that's not what he does, but we have good conversations. And I want to bring some things up with you to get your understanding of things, because maybe you see some things I don't see in hip hop, and I would love to get your I'd like to get your expert opinion. And yes, I said expert opinion. All right. I think hip hop kind of where we're from on the East Coast. I think the northern East Coast, because some people say Florida's East Coast too. So, and I understand that hip hop
station in itself.
Yeah. yeah, exactly. But from our geographic location to hip hop, I believe this, but you can tell me what you think. I believe New York bias is what keeps this area from growing. What do you think?
There can never be a New York bias in hip hop or an East Coast bias. That is the dumbest shit I done ever heard.
And I love it. Let's go.
Hip hop started here in New York City, in the borough of the Bronx, and it spread to Jersey, and it spread out to Long Island and the rest of the 5 boroughs and upstate in Connecticut. You can't, because the way we do it is because this is how it's supposed to be done. When other people want to say, oh, well, that's just their region and how they do things, how they work. I'm like, I'm not against that. But you still keep it hip hop. I like my down south brethren. I like Outkast. I like UGK. They kept it lyrical. They kept it where it was skills. My whole thing, I'm not against the Southern artists, because Little Brother, they still kept it hip hop. My point is that there's still a criteria, an art form, a platform to this shit. You can do whatever the hell you damn well want, but just don't call it that name. That's like me with a basketball trying to then run up and down with the ball when you're supposed to dribble. It ain't basketball if you ain't dribbling. It's like, if it's that, and this is why you got to understand something. There's a certain criteria and a certain format. As I said, I'm all for originality and creativity in the culture. I'm not against that, because that's how the culture has to grow. But there is no East Coast bias or a New York bias. That's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. And I've heard that from other people.
I'm glad you said that, because I beg to differ because of what New York artists have said themselves on their own platforms. When Nori says that New York purposely forced New Jersey and Philadelphia out of the conversation because they wanted to keep it New York and hedge New York off, so New York always had the bag, so to speak. There is a bias there, and the reason why I think there is, wait, let me finish. I think the reason why I think it is because New York to me is like the Game of Thrones. New York is a bunch of kingdoms put together on one island. So you got Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Harlem, even Spanish Harlem, Queens, etc. You know what I'm saying? Even Yonkers and all that. If you want to put all them in there, if you want to, that's cool. But they have their own place, their own language, their own style. So when people were trying to come out with, record deals and stuff, since everything's already stationed in New York, why would you go outside of the region and the kingdoms of New York to get someone else when they would have to come through you? And it seems like anybody who did not come through New York really did not get a fair shake. What do you say?
That's false. Sugar Hill Gang. All them early records that labels were on, dudes were coming out on Sugar Hill Records. That's number one. The Awesome Two, they were from Jersey. Shout out to Teddy Ted and Special K. They were from Hackensack and Passaic. You had Naughty by Nature, Redman. You had Hassan and 7L. I believe they had one of the first records from out of Jersey called Living in the City, where they talk about Newark and they talk about sensations. The whole point, and I understand when people are trying to, I get it, but no one would ever force out the thing. It's because it's that, I understand what you're saying, because in New Jersey, it's nothing more than when I say this, people get mad, but it's nothing more than the suburbs of New York City and Philadelphia, as far as media coverage wise. There are cities in New Jersey, but it's sort of like Connecticut, how Connecticut is in between Boston and New York, where like they get overlooked. And honestly, Newark, New Jersey, which is a great city, by the way, it's only 26 square miles. And it's like, and then you're like 10, and you're a 20-minute train ride from Manhattan. It's like you got New York City right there. Same thing with Connecticut. Hartford, Connecticut is only like what, 25, 26 square miles? It's just like that. So a lot of time, and then you got Boston right up the road from there. This is why I try to tell people that it was never a bias. I understand what people are trying to say, because certain regions people had to feel like, oh, they weren't from here. But Naughty by Nature was from Jersey. Redman, you can't forget the greats. You can't,
but they came through New York talent. Because Flavor Unit, even though Latifah is the head of the New Jersey, the head of the face of New Jersey it still had New York undertones. The EPMD still was from New York, and they brought Redman in. And I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but it all comes back to that. So if New York is like New Jersey, what is it? Connecticut?
Yeah, New York.
We're called the Greater New York Metropolitan Area.
Agreed. Yes.
But it was never set up that way for all land masses to be connected. And when it comes to media coverage, I think that's what gets everybody so angry about not being fairly represented, because people say New Jersey needs its own radio station, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we do have one. Shout out to H Squad Rebel Radio. But the thing is, it's not FM and on a major thing, because the major corporations, their satellites and their towers may be here, but their main offices are over there. So I don't see them cutting off their nose to spite their face to put a tower here just for here, and we're lumped in as the Greater New York Metropolitan Area. You see what I'm saying?
I get that, but as I said, but also too, that's why, like I said, I don't believe in none of that. When people want to say here had a bias or this and that, because, and the whole point is that other regions that never carried the tradition. And what I mean by this is that when hip hop left New York and went to Jersey and Philly, they carried the tradition. You had your MC and your DJ, and like you had Cash Money and Marvelous out of Philly. So what I try to tell people, you had Lady B was from Philly. She's one of the first MC. Some people would say that she was actually, that's actually debatable. I think she was the first solo MC to have a record, Lady B, from Philly. But I know Sha Rock was the first female MC from the Funky 4+1. So when people want to say this thing about bias, if you had the talent and the pull, and you have to know how to navigate and how to network and do what you have to do at the end of the day. A lot of dudes are just lazy in this game. Like, people come up to me, they're like, when you have an event, when you gonna put me on the show and stuff, but I gotta see you in the streets. I gotta see you moving. Show me what you can do. It's sort of like, and people want to get mad and stuff, but it's like, you have to show your face. Like, people tell me I'm the guy that's everywhere, but the person that's everywhere is my man, Big Jeff, Zulu Jeff. That's the brother that's everywhere. I just filed after his pattern. You feel me? And that's like, I learned. That's what you got to learn. Like, you got to be out there and people are like, oh, there's all men. There's Rev Low. There have been people who've come up to me in the street. They're like, you're that guy that's at every hip hop show. People have come up to me in the street off of social media. They're like, wait, who are you and what is it that you do? Because I see you got pictures with everybody. It's like, you have to put yourself out there. That's how you get known. That's how you, like, Heritage Hip Hop, I wouldn't have known for it if you didn't put yourself out there, if you didn't put that work in. You put that grind in. You have to know who you are.
Okay, like I respect that. I respect that. So then let's up the conversation a little bit, because I really want you to do more of the talking so people can understand that it ain't just me out here talking. You know what I'm saying? It's a bunch of people out here that love the culture to the point where we want to uphold the traditions and the laws of the culture. And two organizations that actually put laws down in the culture was the Zulu Nation and the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. Do you think they're still relevant in hip hop today? Why and why not?
Of course, 5% is still relevant in the culture and they're relevant in hip hop. You have to understand though that because it's just with the climate switch and because Top 40 Radio is swaying away from conscious hip hop, but you still have Gods and Earths running around. Shout to the God he's at out there. Brand Nubian, they still out there. They still do shows. They still perform. You can't forget the God Rakim. He's still out there holding it down with the mathematical teaching. A lot of people, when he first came out, didn't know what he was talking about, what he was saying. Only certain people knew what he was talking about. When Wu-Tang came out, they brought it so gully and gutted it and was so in your face. And they were so hood with it that you was like, damn.
But shout out to my man, Born 7 Allah of Atlantis Build. It's a school in upstate New York. Shout out to him, and shout out to everybody who watched the Mike Council with the 5% Nation of Gods on Gods and Earths on Heritage Hip Hop, because we talked about this exact thing, and I think people have purposely left them out the conversation when it comes to hip hop, because accountability has been lost and people don't want to be accountable to the youth. How do you feel about that?
I think the whole thing is that as human beings, every generation says no one wants to be accountable to the youth, and we all want to say each generation was messed up. But we've been saying that since the beginning of time. The whole things have just gotten worse, but it's up to brothers like myself and you who have to educate our young people, and not just young people in general. Because the way ignorance spreads is that, but it's the way that you do it. You don't make someone feel like they're inferior, stupid, or dumb. You have to do it in a respectful manner. Because there are things they can teach you that you might not know. I can teach you, you might not know something. And if somebody's willing to learn, I'm willing to teach, and vice versa. That's how we should be. But it's the way you go about doing it. Not that I know everything, you know nothing. I got all this. If you got the knowledge, because the smartest man in the world will never say they're the smartest man in the world.
Yeah, life is a classroom without walls. And even I always refer to the spiritual books. Even in Job, for those of you who know the Bible or don't know, Job was a man who supposedly had no sin, and the devil tempted God to do things to him and to see if he would curse God. And there was a younger man that was there who actually checked Job and his two friends about being knowledgeable about the Most High and his ways. And Job was not from Israel. And the reason I brought that story up is because even the elders have to get checked by the youth to be put in to get perspective on life and what life is and what life is not, even from their eyes, not just our own experiences. You see what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So what about the Zulu Nation? Are they still important for today's understanding of hip hop?
I believe that they still are. I don't care what anybody says, for whatever scandals they might have had and things might have happened. They are still important because they're the architects of this culture. They help build our culture. So you can't deny their presence of what they have done. I'm not saying everything that they necessarily certain people in the group might have done or did do. I was not there, so I do not know, and I cannot speak on that. And that's why I don't like when people want to say, oh, well, I heard about this for years and I've known this for years. If you knew, why didn't you say something? Because then you're just as guilty as the person who done did it. If you know so much, I look at it like this, the man was never found guilty. Get the hell out of here. I'm not saying, because I don't know, I was not there. It's sort of like OJ. I don't know if do I think he did it? Yes, I think OJ did it. But I wasn't there. I don't know if he did it or not. I have no right to go and say that he did, because if I didn't know the truth, what the hell am I telling you for? I should go to the damn LAPD.
Well, that's the R. Kelly, Bill Cosby conversation we're having right now.
I was not there with R. Kelly and Bill Cosby.
True.
I can't deny R. Kelly made good music. But you got to think some of his records was questionable. Keep it on the down low, 12 play. My mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes.
Summer bunnies.
But at the same time, I don't want to be near that person because I don't know what he might do or could have done. Because, hey, shit, I ain't one for all of that. And it's not for me to do that because I was not there. I do not know. I don't get myself because I know I don't, after hearing something like that, I don't want him around me. If I have, or any of my children, or any of my nieces and nephews, or any child that I know, I'll tell you that right now.
If you had to teach somebody hip hop, you're a professor now, and you have a class. What would your syllabus contain? And what do you think are the major things people have to learn about hip hop that maybe people don't talk about too much in the culture?
We need to talk about the forefathers and the origins of this shit. I'm sorry for the language, because they ain't mean to curse, but I just got passionate. We need to let the people know where it started, what it came from, because a lot of people who say they know classic hip hop only know the 90s. And I think why people only know the 90s is because that's when it was most sensational and the most popular. But however, whatever craft you are in, you should know the past. Know that you should, because then you'll know where you're going. When I hear people say, "Oh," when I heard there was a person the other day on my Facebook. I won't say his name because he's a friend of mine. A while back, he didn't know who Pete Rock was, and I'm like, and he said he wants to be a producer and an MC. He can't be now. Because I'm about 40. He's about maybe 32 now, maybe 32, I think. When you don't know who Pete Rock is, I'm sorry. These are things you should know. You should know who Large Professor is, Marley Marl, Larry Smith. You should know who these people are. Know who Cornbread is, the first graph writer out of Philly. Well, modern day graph writer, because we've been doing graffiti since the hieroglyphics with the Egyptians. So it's been around. So my point is, these are things that you should know. We should know about Grandmaster Flowers, Grandmaster Cats, Treacherous 3. You should know about the brothers who came before us. And it's like, these are things I think that are very important to our culture and to our youth. And also we can get because when it got lost, I'm not against the whole innovation process and technology, because certain things they are good, but then it's bad. We lost sight of certain things. And you have to really understand our culture and see where it came from.
So what makes hip hop a culture and not a movement?
That's a very good question. I think we've called it a culture because, and when you look at it, this is the only set of music that's a culture. We don't call rock and roll a culture. You don't call classical music a culture. I think the whole culture of it is that it took on its own way of life to a point. And I'm gonna say, and I think that that's a really big thing, because the way it took on its own way of life, that it's like, the culture, it had all the different elements into it.
So let's talk about that, because this is something I like to teach, not just talk about. I believe hip hop is a culture because it's the only form of music that's alive. Think about this. What's jazz?
Wait. Jazz is music.
No, it's not. Jazz is slang. Jazz meant sex. So when people had played the music and the women and men were grinding on each other and flipping each other around, their bodies were touching. So jazz music was a slang for sex music. So that's where jazz, the pronunciation of jazz came from, because it was also a derivative of swing music. Remember how you swing the girls? So,
right.
So jazz was slang for sex. Now, What is rock and roll music?
That was the devil's music, they would call it.
Shout out to Bob Johnson, right?
Right.
But heavy metal was the taking of rock, because rock and roll was this. This is rocking and rolling. It's a movement. It has nothing to do with life. It's just movement.
Right.
Rhythm and blues. And everybody doesn't have rhythm, but everybody has blues. So rhythm brought melody to your emotion. Hip hop is the only thing that's alive because it took all those things and then accentuated it in other forms. How can you be R&B if you can't sing?
Agreed.
How can you be jazz if you're not physical with somebody? How could you be rock and roll if, God forbid, you were paraplegic? Hip hop is the only music genre that's alive because it is a walking, breathing manifestation of God inside and outside of you at the same time. My computer's going bananas right now. Give me 1 second. Here we go. All right. So it's inside out at the same time, because hieroglyphics are hip hop, but that has nothing to do with music, and they turn into graffiti. And then shout out to the Artifacts because they're the fathers of hip hop animation, anime. Think about that. So with that, they are the ones who took it to the next level. Shout out to the people bringing my bell. You know what I mean? But outside of graffiti, outside of the way you dress, outside of how you rap or do beats, is the only form of music that brought people together. What do you think?
And when you look at it, I get what you mean. So now to answer your question, I get what you mean, but other forms of music did bring people together because back in the days of the Motown era, you had people of all different walks of life that liked Motown music. However, I think hip hop just took it to another level. And what I mean by this is that it brought Black, white, Hispanics, Asians, Middle Easterns, Indians. You got people rapping in Russian now, people rapping in Spanish, Portuguese. So I think that through the walks of, you know what, and I'll say this, call it bias, call it what you want. I think that Black music brings people together, plain and simple. I said it. When you look at it, I've met people from all races, colors, creeds, religions that love the Temptations. I've met people that love New Edition, that love James Brown, that loved Jimi Hendrix, Etta James. So I've met people who love Wu-Tang, who love Fat Joe, Keith Murray, from all races, colors, creeds, religions. So I think, quote unquote, Black music, if you want to call it, now it is what it is. It is Black music at the end of the day. Really just Black people, we bring love and light and just warm people. And we're gonna put you on to something. That's what we do.
But bringing people together doesn't mean bringing people together in a group, or it doesn't even mean bringing people together for a form of understanding. That's not bringing people together. That's entertainment. See, when I say bringing people together, okay, how many people you ever heard say R&B saved my life? You barely hear that. But Motown is very interesting that you say Motown, because Motown is more hip hop than R&B. That's why it's called soul music. And hip hop is soulful. Think about it this way. Motown was just as vulgar as hip hop is today. Am I lying or am I telling the truth to you?
Back in the day, they were considered to be vulgar. Well, each generation, people are going to say the music was always vulgar.
No, nobody had music where men were talking about women buying shotguns and putting on dresses and dancing on graves like Motown. The harshest song that came out the Black community back then was blues music, when people talked about either beating their women or getting beat up by their women. That's it. Mm-hmm. Bob Johnson took it to another level when in rock and roll. He talked about selling his soul to the devil to make music. Right. That's what inspired Bob Dylan and all them other folks. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
But, and I mean, let's look at this in a very third person type of way. Hip hop did one thing that no form of music ever did, and that's elevate every part of your life till it branched out and gave people perspective on God, themselves, careers, and inspiration to others. Because hip hop was bigger than making a label and putting out music. It turned into school. It turned into Library of Congress. It turned into politics. It turned to all those things other forms of music did not do.
That's interesting. That's food for thought. And that is something to really think about. But I honestly think that music as a whole, it's the food of life. And depending on what food you like.
Well, think about this. Music is the first language.
Agreed.
So for people who are real spiritual, some people believe that our spirits talk to the Most High before we go into our bodies, right? And we have a conversation. Conversation is rhythm from your mouth, a rhythm from your conscious being put into your soul. Mm-hmm. After you fertilize the egg and you connect to your mom's womb, the first song that you hear is her heartbeat. I mean, come on now. When you're cradled by your mom, she hums to you. That's a song. In kindergarten and preschool, we taught the remix. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Some people hear Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Some people hear A B C D E F G. You know what I'm saying?
And that's a very interesting thing that you just said. a gentleman once said this on a T-shirt, and it was a good conversation I was about to have when I met him at the Shy Rock celebration anniversary back in June in the Bronx. This gentleman, he was selling his T-shirts, and he said hip hop is everywhere. And I told him at first, like, you know what? I don't necessarily agree with that because everything ain't hip hop, and hip hop ain't everywhere. He's like, but he goes, you know, because everything ain't hip. And we were, it wasn't all. We had a discussion, and he broke. And now that you broke it down to me this way, I'm kind of understanding what he was trying to say. How hip hop is everywhere. When you really look, if you really look at it, interesting.
That's why I'm not going to I'm not going to put up with you forcefully humbling yourself. You're dope. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what makes hip hop what it is. It's not the fact that people can rap or cannot rap. It's not the fact of people can nod their head to a beat and some people can't. Hip hop is exactly what we call it. For it to be a culture, it has to be living. Cultures are alive. That's why when cultures die, we have record of their existence. Can you tell me, is jazz as well recorded as hip hop music is?
I don't think it is because back then they didn't have the technology like we do now.
That's false, and I'm telling you why it's false. Because as long as you had a what they call it, a sonophone, whatever they called it. They didn't call it a record player. I forgot what it's called. As long as you had that, you had some way to produce sound and rhythm and to share it.
I understand what you mean by that, but I don't think some people might not have been thinking about all of that at the time. Because even in the early days of hip hop, some albums, some records are rare, and it's like, damn, I got to get my hands on that. Now we got to save these for the archive. So I get what you're trying to say, but. So I think hip hop now, everything now with social media is documented. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah. Social media does aid in it, but here's the thing: hip hop is as documented as the civil rights movement, as jazz is not given credit for being called American music. It's called Black music. Think about it this way. Think about it this way. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We know the reasons for that, so we don't really gotta. We know.
No, but I don't think we really do because it's bigger than racism. It really is. And jazz music did not permeate education the way jazz did because remember, jazz had no words. So when the poets and the poet laureates and the authors started gravitating to the hip hop culture. Then it brought more awareness to the struggle and the awareness of the people that went within the pain.
But you got to remember,
why other cultures was able to have their own form of it and come together.
But you got to remember, in hip hop too was started behind the DJ, and at first the MC was just there. At first, he wasn't doing nothing. It wasn't until later on the MC really got the notoriety and stuff, and then it was like if the MC took over the DJ. You know what I mean? Not say took over, but was at the forefront. So I honestly feel like with anything, it starts out with the sound and the rhythm and the beat, and then the lyrics come in. But then sometimes, even in rock and roll, start out with the beat, and then the lyrics then came at anything. You know what I mean? So.
But we're only talking about music, because once again, I said words, and graffiti captured words on canvas.
I get what you're saying, and I understand that. But that's on canvas. But then I'm talking about. But then a lot of times we look at through the music, and even still, a lot of times. When the graph price was writing up, they was putting up their tags. They want to leave their mark to know who they were. We had all these different names, you know. So
let's talk about that part of hip hop for a minute. I think the graffiti writers don't get the respect they deserve because the art has evolved and people are still looking for the past art. The graffiti was on buildings and on trains. Yes. Now graffiti's on video games and anime books. And because the elder people may not get into Dragon Ball and stuff, they might not know about Tuskegee Airs, which is the Tuskegee Airmen and the graphic art of Gundams and Transformers with black children as the pilots being the next form of hip hop art. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
How do we keep that alive so it is appreciated from the elders to the youth and then put in high society and not just entertainment society, in your opinion?
You have to educate the people on the history about it. You have to teach the people, let them know. You need to talk to the brothers who was there from the beginning, the originators, a lot of the old school graph writers. This is what it's all about. It's about educating our young people. And that's what the people we don't do, especially in our community. It's very important. We have to start educating our brothers and sisters and the young people. Actually, not just brothers, people in general, so that they can get the proper story and they can get the better understanding. Because people just going, well, I heard this. Well, where did you hear your facts from? Who told you that? Get the facts straight. You don't just assume. And this is why people get themselves into trouble. And then they're labeled as dumbasses when it's not their fault. They didn't get the proper information.
That's what I always say to people, not to cut you off. People always say, well, they say, and I'm like, who the hell are they?
Where'd you get your information from? You got to know where you're getting your information. Are they a credible source? And that's like I tell people want to say they know everything or they know it all, or if it wasn't for me, like, I'll even give you an example. I think the average, and this is outside of music, but this is the average individual, whether they be Black, white, Spanish, Asian, Indian, the American dream is to be a homeowner. The average individual is their dream to be a homeowner. Now, if you've never owned a home before, so you don't know what to do, and then you're asking around, wanting to get the proper advice and help, how do you know what that person is telling you is the proper thing? Even when you do your own research, you know what I mean? A lot of times you got to learn by trial and error. That's why many people buy their first home are like, damn, knowing what I know now, I would have done things differently. That's why they do better the second time around. This is like anything in life. If no one's there to teach you, or you know where you're getting the proper information from.
That's a great point. I'm glad you said that. So let's give people proper perspective on things that you have learned about with your love and passion for the culture. Besides the East Coast demographic, what artists from other parts of the country, if not the world, taught you more about hip hop and made you want to expand your career, your critique, and your experience with it?
I have to give a shout out to the Hieroglyphics from the Bay Area, them Oakland boys. I'm Souls of Mischief, 93 Till Infinity. That is a classic album. If you don't have that album, hey, it sucks for you.
That's funny.
The Far Side out of LA. Little Brother from out of North Carolina. Well, because they got their start when they went to North Carolina Central, the college down there. What they did when I first, because actually how I first got wind of Little Brother was they came to Kane University and they opened up for Kanye West back in 2004. And they were the opening act. And it wasn't their fault because through the whole show, the sound was messed up. So a lot of people when they got on stage, people were like, who are these guys? And I'm listening to them, trying to do my best. And then I seen a video they had on Rap City, because this was when the Minstrel Show album came out. And I heard, I'm like, because I'm the type where I would buy records, and if it sucked, I would just throw it out the damn window. That's the type of individual I was back in the day. I had no regard for money and stuff, because I was one of those dudes, had the money, spent it young, but now that I've gotten older and I got a job and I got bills to pay, rent to pay, more, stuff you got to do. Hell no, I'm careful how I spend my money now. I still make sure to look fly and to have myself looking sharp, but you know what I mean? But you still got to save them pennies. So anyway, I got the album, The Minstrel Show, and I'm like, and then they had the joint on there with Big Daddy Kane, Welcome to Durham. I was like, these dudes are from North Carolina, but they was rapping like, you swear they was like dudes from up the block or in Brooklyn or a guy in Jersey. They was rapping. I was like, yeah. And then my man Kazi from North Carolina, how I met him, who actually worked with Ninth Wonder before Ninth Wonder's real claim, before he blew up. And that brother, I was like, yo, when I first met him, he came to the Port Tavern in New Brunswick, New Jersey to perform. Shout out to KO, my man Oracle, when they had an event they were doing. And Kazi tore that stage down. I'm like, yo. And he even laughed at me at the end of the day. He goes, down in NC now, we don't all rap like P.D. Pablo and that bullshit. Nah, we actually can rhyme. And I was just like, yo. And been a fan since then. Him, brothers like Superstition. Then I got put on to brothers from, I was listening to Common from his first album, from the first album. But Can I Borrow $1? When people here didn't know who he was. When he wouldn't sell out SOBs. I mean, he would fill it back then, but he wasn't selling it out. Now, he ain't doing SOBs no more. Now it's Best Buy Theater and shit. And you got a chance to see how other MCs rhyme. And this is why I tell people, and again, mentioning Chicago, just to let people know, we talk about the fast tongue rapping in the Midwest with Bone Thugs and Harmony and Twista and those guys. All that shit originated from New York rappers. Go through the history of it. Even before the Fushnickens out of Brooklyn. This is why I tell people there can never be an East Coast bias with that stuff. No, like everything derived from the East. This is the art form that it came from. And I don't care what any rapper says, whatever region, you want to get the love from the East Coast. I don't care what anybody says. You can have all of that stuff about, yeah, you got your region on lock, which is cool. But everybody wants to say, like, yo, New York niggas really was feeling my shit, or Jersey niggas is feeling me. It is what it is.
So I'm going to ask you from a journalist perspective, because we're running out of time, unfortunately, and this is a dope conversation. You know what I'm saying?
We got to go part 2.
Hey, I'm going to tell you what people have told me, and we're going to see what you say. But from your understanding of hip hop, I'm going to give you about like 4 regions of hip hop. You just tell me how you define them.
Okay.
New York, Philly, Jersey, Detroit, and the Bay. How do you define those that type of hip hop?
New York, New Jersey, and Philly is pretty much one area, because when they left New York, Jersey and Philly followed right after. So they pretty much have a unique same sound. Detroit, nah, they had MCs that was spitting from days back before Eminem. You had the Breakfast Club brothers in the Breakfast Club again, and even those guys out there. And you said, what was the other region? You said LA?
Yeah, we could do the Bay. Tell me about the Bay.
And even the Bay and LA, there's the brothers out there who do have lyrics. Shout out to Planet Asia. Shout out to Razkaz. Shout out to Fashion from out there in the West Coast, is what I tell people. When they want to talk that stuff about how, that's why I don't get into that. I don't really go by a region where somebody's from. If your shit is dope, your shit is dope. And that's why I don't go, well, everybody sounds like this over there and over there. No. That's that, you know what I'm saying? You got dudes who really can rhyme and who are coming with the boom bap sound and those hard dope beats and dope rhymes. Ninth Wonder, he's from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Makes dope shit.
He's the evolution of Pete Rock.
But I mean, he wants to sound like Pete Rock.
Shit.
But anyway.
I
get credit where credit is due.
All right, so how has the internet made hip hop better for you, or how has it made it worse, if it did?
It's good in one aspect because we can get everything all at once so quickly, but it kind of killed the fact that the record stores and the mixtape DJs. I mean, on our show, we give you a mixtape every Monday night on BBox Radio with the Against the Grain show every Monday from 8 to 10, DJ Polarity and I. Also, shout out to my past DJs, A Sharp and DJ Absurd and Super Brown Bum. I love you, brothers. And yeah, Absurd and I have the same birthday. We had our show together at Kane University with the Air of the Street show.
Dope.
You know what I mean? So and our birthday's coming up, so you can PayPal me. I'm taking gifts. You know, I'm ready. Come July 26th, I'm ready.
Do not beg on my show. You're a Leo? You're July 26th?
Yep, I'm a Leo.
You want to tell you something funny? My birthday's July 25th.
Oh, wow.
We need to get together on the birthday and chill.
No, definitely, man. I'm always down for the get down.
That we gotta do that. The 26th is my anniversary, actually. that's dope, yo. Salute. All right, so I think we're gonna do 2 or 3 more questions, and then we're gonna go to the rapid fire questions. We're gonna see who you are and what you really are inside as well as outside. All right. So I'm gonna ask you a very stupid question, but I want your not your forced humble, your real humble opinion. All right.
Yeah.
Why do people discount the West Indian culture in hip hop when Puerto Rican, Dominican, Haitian, Jamaican, Trinidad, Tobago, all that help define, actually create a more stable voice in hip hop, especially when coupled with an American, I want to say black culture, but American black culture? Why do people discount that?
Because a lot of times you have to remember, a lot of brothers who helped create the culture, yes, Kool Herc is from Jamaica, but he came here as a young man. So I think a lot of people, unless you knew her, didn't know he was from Jamaica. It's like KRS-One. A lot of people don't know. I believe KRS-One, I think he's of Jamaican descent. I think. But again, if he doesn't tell you that, you don't know that, you're not going to know. So that's why I think a lot of times, and if I grew up in, my family's from East Flatbush. So that's pretty much, I grew up in a household where I heard calypso, soca, reggae, all of that stuff, that a lot of people, I think, if you're in East Flatbush, you'll hear hip hop because you got a lot of brothers like the Fushnickers, I think. Again, don't quote me. I think 1 or 2 of them might be of West Indian descent. So I think a lot of times growing up when they would go, you're hearing the hip hop, and not that then you hear calypso and soca and reggae at home all the time. You try to hear something different, you go out in the street, some people, you know what I mean? And then if you were born here like myself, it's a lot, you're more ingrained to quote unquote American culture. You know what I mean? So I think that's part of it. But then some brothers try to use their roots and get more rhythmic with it. I mean, try to add the bass lines and the rhythm to that. You know what I mean?
I think that's what makes America so fucked up, pardon my language, because the Beatles got big because the children wanted to hear something different than their father's music. And I'm not gonna say the Beatles didn't have good music, because the Beatles had some stuff. I mean, if y'all really listen to music,
they had some hot joints, they had some smashes.
Yeah, the Beatles was crazy with it. And then again, it influenced the entire world.
And they were influenced by black folk anyway.
Of course, yeah, we know that. But not even that though. I think with hip hop, it gave more rudiment and more depth to the song rather than people singing. Because think about it, hip hop is harder than R&B. Well, R&B, you have to carry a note. With hip hop, you got to watch what you say and how you deliver it. It's kind of different.
Agreed, because hip hop, a lot of it, rapping, you cannot confuse that with singing. You can't.
Well, and nowadays they try.
But again, see, why we got to do a part 2 of this. We got to do a part 2, and that too is a whole other conversation in itself.
Well, before we go, I was told to give you about 5 to 10 minutes of asking me questions, because people have wanted to see me and you do a show for a long time. I've heard this conversation like, yo, you and Armando and they need to do something together. Y'all crazy. Y'all need to talk. Like, and people have been trying to get me and you to do a show together for years, yo.
Now, first things first, because I know you're a hip hop head, but also too, what is your other passion outside of hip hop?
The Most High. Besides God, it's hip hop. Besides God, because God is always first. It's my family. It's education. I like cartoons and kickbacks, and I play video games. I like comic books. Like, that's the type of stuff I like. I'm not passionate about much, but God is first, and then I say my family.
That's what it is. And then I also wanted to ask you, what got you really involved in hip hop from the beginning?
My brother, because my brother was an MC. And the first song I remember going crazy for was "It Takes Two" by Rock Bass and DJ Easy Rock.
Nice.
so that's you know.
And there's nothing, and that's what it's all about. And my next thing I wanted to also ask you is that, wow, damn, I didn't know you were Leo. So cool. But now, I mean, with that being said, and when you say education, as far as formal education, going to school, or just like more just life education, learning?
Life is a classroom without walls. So any day you stop learning is the day you die. So I like all education. I learn about everything. I don't pigeonhole myself to anything. Agreed.
And that's how life should be. Because when you pigeonhole yourself, you're actually doing yourself a disservice.
Do you know what college is, or what college originally was?
Well, I know it's a place where I know a lot of us get in debt, and we're supposed to learn and elevate ourselves. But I don't regret my college education, because thanks to my mom and dad, may my father rest in peace, I got my education. So now what is it?
College is when men get together and debate or share thought. That's all college was back in the day. So back in the day when there was no university buildings, when the philosophers and the doctors of the law would get together, they would sit around, and then there are people, we call those debates nowadays. That was called college. And then when people would cross-examine their thoughts, they would go away, study, reconsider, and then come back to something. Hold on for a second. All right, I'm back.
Yes, sir. But yeah, so, and also I wanted to also add, this other thing I wanted to also ask you is, how should I put it? What made you decide to start your podcast? What really made you decide to do that?
Heritage Hip Hop started because people from New Jersey are dope MCs, and we don't get to hear their stories. And I believe our story needs to be told. While everybody talks about Big Daddy Kane and LL Cool J, KRS One and Rakim and all that, we had people that were rocking just as long as them and people who have beat them in rap battles. And when Govmatic died, rest in peace, and when Big Snuff died, rest in peace, I got very frustrated because they're great artists that I have seen and heard of and heard that people don't talk about. Like people always say rest in peace Apache, but who's telling the Apache story? Salute to Drift, because he teaches me, and I talked to Tretch about Apache, and I mean I got like a little conversation about it, but I feel that there's so many people in Jersey who are dope, whose stories not being told. So I started Heritage Hip Hop because, for one, I love hip hop, but it turned into me doing an appreciation piece on the culture and who we are, because no one's going to tell our story better than us. And I wanted to give a platform where not only we got to know Jersey's understanding of hip hop, but as it grew and I got to meet old school legends and people from around the world, I wanted them to share their message and their story so people could understand their music and possibly support them.
Nice. And that's what we do on the Against the Grain show. The goal of the show is to promote good music. I don't care where an artist is from. I never have been like that. I support you if you're from around the way. When I lived in Jersey, I supported it because I grew up out in Jersey. So I really don't care where a person is from. If your shit is whack, your shit is whack. If your shit's good, your shit is good. It is what it is. People have this attitude about, oh, you can't say somebody's trash. Oh, if it's not your cup of tea, but don't say it's trash because that's being disrespectful. No, a dude is trash or chick is trash. The shit's trash. It's no good. Your shit's whack. It be what it be. I'm sorry. We need to stop giving passes and stop calling shit hip hop when it's not hip hop.
Well, I will agree with you, because you hear me on my video interview say I even interview people whose music I don't like. It's not about me. It's not my platform is not about music. If you ever heard the byline of Heritage Hip Hop is hip hop, Heritage Hip Hop more than music, or you hear me say this, hip hop is not music, God is hip hop. When people hear me say that, they don't understand what I mean, and then I try to show them the importance that they have, so that they can reach into themselves and be the best they are, and not just rap on beats. Because you know what I'm saying? I'll tell you like this: I can't wait to have a conversation with Steve Harvey on how he critiques hip hop, because I would like to show him how he's hip hop and he doesn't even know it, and he needs to be more appreciative of the young people trying to do better and stop glorifying the mainstream hatred of who we are and categorize that as hip hop. Because I think that's horrible. So I would like my dream. I want to meet Oprah and Steve Harvey and really have that conversation on their shows about what hip hop is. And then I also want to talk to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, if I ever get that chance. That's one interview I would love to have, because I don't think we have said thank you in a way where it's spiritually given, not just life relevant.
I agree. But I agree. Because I'd love to meet the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as well. Now, also, my last question for you, bro, is that, like I said, we definitely got to get together for our birthday and go to a hip hop show.
Damn right. Yes. Yep. I'm going to see Benny the Butcher in October. You want to roll?
I'm down. I already know about that.
That's in Montclair.
Long Island, got the show in Montclair.
Yeah, Montclair all day. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
All right, so let's get to the rapid fire questions. Give them your social media before we leave up out of here. We done had so many interruptions and stuff. Yeah. Let's just close this out real good and give people something to think about. Give me your social media.
My social media on Twitter and Instagram is All Mental, ALLMENTAL. You can also follow the radio show on Twitter _ATG show _, and then that's Instagram. And on Twitter, it's just ATG show. You can follow us there on Twitter at ATG show and on Instagram _ATG show _.
And I can't wait to go to, Brooklyn to be on your show.
Come through. You
have not put me on Against the Grain. I want to know what's going on. Why I got to get the black ball?
Come on down. You're always welcome. Everybody's welcome. You know?
Hey, man, just give me a date and the address and I'll show up, man.
No doubt. Thank you very much.
All right, so everybody's time for the rapid fire questions, which are not yes, no questions. These are questions derived on who you are, the hip hop culture, and your understanding of it. You ready to go?
Sure, let's go.
Question number 1. What album or song from an artist perfectly describes you?
Damn. What song or what album or song from an artist perfectly describes me?
Mm-hmm.
Shit. If I had to say a song or an album that perfectly describes me, Damn. Because there's so many that if I had to choose one, LL Cool J radio, because I just love the radio, love listening to dope music and the song, and I just can't live without my radio.
Who are the 5 most important people in hip hop to study if people wanted to learn about the entire culture?
First of all, Grand Wizard Theodore. You need to study him. That's the inventor of the scratch if you want to be a DJ. Kool Herc as well, and Grandmaster Flash, those 3. I would also say, and I'm gonna also say Cornbread, if you know about graffiti. If you want to be an MC, you need to study Melly Mel and also Big Daddy Kane.
Okay.
And I will throw in Nas lyrically. Okay. And if you want to know the total package of what it is to be an MC, you have to study Big Daddy Kane and Jay-Z. They have the total package.
Okay. My next question for you is this. Hip hop has taken over every form of life. What is the most gratifying part of hip hop outside of the music that you indulge in regularly?
Being with the people. Just being at the shows, at the events. Just saying what up to people. Being amongst genuine people, good people. Shout out to the good people, by the way. They dropped an album, I believe, last month.
And they got Do It All and Mr. Funky on it. Salute to the good people.
Yes.
Those my people. Salute to them. All right. Yep. My next question for you is this. Hip hop is the most hated and beloved art form of all time because of who it put into position. Outside of music, who embodies hip hop that you would teach a hip hop fan to study them, even though they're not a rapper, a DJ, or in the culture as that in that form?
Who I would tell them they should study and learn? Malcolm X.
Why?
Because you got to understand, you have brothers like Malcolm X in the teachings, and I feel like he too, even though he might have been dead since 1965, but still he's an important individual. And if a lot of us, and the way he was charismatic, the way he was able to speak and talk, he embodied hip hop.
Okay. What's the best hip hop battle of all time? Not just MCs, anything.
I'd have to say Rocksteady and the New York City Breakers.
And that was captured on Wild Style, right?
Yep. I was in Beat Street.
Beat Street. Crazy Legs. Shout out to Crazy Legs, yo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think my favorite hip hop battle of all time was Kiss FM versus BLS. That was
Radio Wars.
Yeah, Radio Wars are dope. They are dope for one simple thing. It got you to open your ears to different forms of hip hop.
Yes,
hey, man. Hey, can you go wrong with Future Flavors versus Angie Martinez Battle of the Beats? Can you really get mad at that?
They were both on Future Flavors. They were both on Hot 97 at the same time.
Nah, wasn't one on BLS?
No, that might have been earlier, but not the same time.
Yeah, maybe earlier. Yeah,
because you have to remember by that time BLS had come like 94. BLS had switched to just contemporary R&B. Because before that, they were doing hip hop. Because remember, Angie Martinez had Ballad of the Beats from 8 to 10 on her show, and then Future Flavors.
It was a little earlier than that.
No. No. I'm sorry. It was from like 7 to 8 or 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or 8 to 8:30. It was 2 songs. So my fault.
Yeah.
Then she had the top 5 at 9, which came on at 9 o'clock.
Right.
Whereas Flavors came on Sunday nights at 10 o'clock, right after, because then we got to remember at 9 o'clock, that was when you had Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
Lisa Evers. Shout out to Lisa Evers. Channel 5 News, Fox 5. But yo, this is what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I think it's important for people who have podcasts and shows to come together and be on each other's things, because not only do we bring the best out of each other in conversation, you get edified and we do too. And that makes the hip hop culture more relevant because we're together rather than doing diss tracks or saying this person suck, listen to me, or we beefing. That's corny. It's all about togetherness in the culture, because for it to be a culture, it has to be a society and societal, which means we have to work together. You agree?
Amen.
All right. So I got 4 or 5 more questions. What you want? 4 or 5? What you want?
Give me 5.
We're going 5 questions and then we're going to end this off, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, iTunes, and Anchor.fm, make sure you follow Heritage Hip Hop. And are you there on those platforms as well?
No, I'm just on regular internet radio. That's it.
So we're going to have to get him a podcast so he can do more of this. So you can get the radio him and you can get the other side of him that loves hip hop as well. You know what I'm saying? My question number 5. This is a real one that I think people don't bear witness to. We talk about the DJ and we talk about the beat, and some people mispronounce the beat maker and the producer as the same person. I want to ask you something. Who embodies the spirit of hip hop as a producer or beat maker to you?
DJ Premier and Pete Rock and Marley Marl. You have to understand, those dudes weren't just beat makers, they were producers. They knew, and honestly, Large Professor. Because I'll say this right now, because Nori had his joint that came out in 2012 called Bill Pyramids. That was one of Nori's best joints. And I'll tell you why, because Large Professor brought the best out of him. But when you're the producer, one thing to make a beat, but when you're in the studio with them, here's how the track should sound. Here's how you got to bring it out. Even Kanye West, as weird as it might sound, people can say what they want about Kanye, but he's actually he's very talented and an excellent producer. He ain't the best rapper. He's not. He ain't no super lyrical dude. However, because he made the track, he tailored it, he knows how it should sound, he made it for him. So it fits him. You feel what I'm saying? But brothers like Premier, Pete Rock, Large Pro, even Ninth Wonder, it's about you as a producer, not just in hip hop, any genre of music, you bring out the best in an artist.
I like how you said that, because a lot of people aren't bringing the best. They just give people beats so they go to YouTube and that's it.
And that's the problem. It's like how, I made a beat, but I don't know how they should say. I'm like, then you're not a producer. You're not even a real beat maker, because you know how to construct it and understand it. Because I tell this to people, anybody can play a guitar or the piano. However, not everyone can create a song, because you have to have a good ear for the music and have rhythm. That's what it comes down to. That's why when I hear people try to joke and say, oh, white folks ain't got no rhythm, that's a lot of BS, because you have some white dudes who are some of the best producers out there. Shout out to Alchemist.
Why do the elements of hip hop change, and why don't we have a stable set of elements?
It goes like this, the 5 elements: knowledge, MCing, DJing, graffiti, and breaking. People want to add in all this other extra stuff, but them is the 5 elements. That's really what this culture was built on. It was about hard work, having fun. People want to add in all that extra stuff, because as we grow as people and as a culture, we want to add different things into our society and into the culture. But you got to remember, I go back to what the forefathers, what the originators wanted. It ain't none of this stuff about you see, I can't say certain things because God forbid, then I'll get backlash. And I don't want you to get backlash. So certainly I have to learn how to calm down. All this about when people want to say this is hip, but it's not hip hop. I mean, when people want to talk about, oh well, they were wearing all these uniforms on stage to begin the elders, that's because we had to get on. But you ain't see brothers in the street wasn't dressed like that. Run DMC changed the game when they wore what the brothers was wearing on Jamaica Ave and on Queens Boulevard. They were dressing like the rest, like the hustlers and dudes out in the street with the Adidas sneakers and with the tracksuit and with the leather jackets. They dress like the regular people, like the average person, like good people. They ain't wear all these. They did all that when the brothers before them were doing all that stuff like Stetsasonic and them wearing all those uniforms on stage dressing like the village people. It's because that's how we had to get on.
All right, so wait a minute. So I was doing my studies on hip hop, and it different depending on who you talk to. The 4 elements change, because you have some that say the 4 elements of hip hop is DJing, MCing, b-boying, and writing.
Well, yeah, that's what I just said: graffiti and breakdancing. I said that.
But when you talk to other people, I'm just giving you my notes for that I got for this interview. MCing, DJing, breakdancing, graffiti, and beatboxing, right? Then you have the new information of hip hop, which is b-boying, breakdancing, DJing, graffitiing, MCing, stunting, and trapping. And then you have the other additional elements of hip hop, which is entrepreneurialism, technology, et cetera, et cetera. If the elements evolve, how come the culture seems to not want to evolve with it?
because I'm all for evolution. Don't get it twisted. I'm all for it. However, there's certain rules and guidelines to this shit and how we have to do things. All this adding all this extra stuff. Like, no. I shouldn't say no because it goes back into what we said earlier. Hip hop is everywhere. So they're trying to add in all this, like, oh, that's hip hop, that's hip hop. At the end of the day, I go for the core principles and what this thing was and what it stood for. And
I agree. I agree.
All this stuff about and even the culture with when people want to get mad but when you have like Trinidad James and them men wearing leg titans, we don't do that. We're men. We don't do that stuff. We don't go wearing leg titans. We don't go wearing skirts like Kanye. Don't get it twisted. Kanye, yeah, if your mother was like, she want to smack you, that girl, the Kardashian got you acting stupid. She probably smacking your mother. She probably turning in a grave.
Wow.
Shit.
All right, we got the raw. That's 3 questions, everybody. I'm gonna go to question number 4. You talked about the culture vulture, existence within hip hop, and wherever there's a Christ, there's gonna be a Judas. Tell everybody what the element of what is a culture vulture and how to get away from or perceive one and stop one when they see one.
A culture vulture is somebody who just comes in the culture, tries to make $1, doesn't really care about the culture, and just uses it for whatever they can gain. They have no heart, no soul, no love for this thing. And again, it has nothing to do with race because you have blacks and Hispanics in this culture that are culture vultures as well. So it has nothing to do with race. And now the way you spot one is just by having a conversation and you keep them stay away from them. You ain't coming near me. You're not gonna ruin what the forefathers of this culture done built and what the people done built up in here.
Well, I hope everybody liked our conversation. How'd you like our conversation? How we do tonight?
I thought it was wonderful, exquisite, splendid.
Yeah, this was dope. And this is what everybody has been waiting for years. And you're welcome. You know what I'm saying? So my final question, and we thank you for coming on the Heritage Hip Hop Podcast tonight. My final question is this. I asked everybody about their legacy because they make music. You don't make music, so I'm going to ask you your legacy in a different form. Kurt Nice has a legacy, which is Shades of Hip Hop and more, right? Ralph McDaniels has a legacy, which is Video Music Box. We have so many people who are not rappers who have legacies that's well defined in hip hop. How do you want to document your legacy so that All Mental is known as one of the greats when it comes to the culture and keeping the culture what it is, and that's respectful, moral, and alive?
Well, first things first, it's not about being the greatest of anything. It's just being the best human being I can be first and foremost. That's number one. That's what I want my legacy to be. Plain and simple, whether it be hip hop, outside at my job, whatever I do. Because I work a 9 to 5, y'all, and I have no shame or no blame in that. And I'll tell you straight to the point. I got my benefits and I got my pension coming. So yeah, it is what it is. So ladies, hey. Now, in addition to that being said, my whole thing with it more so is that I just want people to say that's just the brother who just did the best that was just good at what he did. And that just said like, yo, he was just a stand-up man. And that's what it's about being in this world. Being a stand-up man and a decent human being.
Well, I'm going to push you because that's not enough for me. Because you, my man, I want you to take your legacy serious or more serious. And I want you to either write your book, write your screenplay, do your documentary, even if it's just about yourself or how you understand hip hop. I need you to do that. And I'm going to tell you why I need you to do that. People are more influenced by their eyes than their ears. I hate being on camera. I'm only doing this for Heritage Hip Hop. I don't even like social media. But I do this because I want somebody to know that love is real and appreciation is real as well. And because you have the knowledge that you have, please don't be the Most High called the wicked, lazy servant who was given a talent and didn't use it. Use it to the best of your ability because you are a great orator when it comes to hip hop because you're able to speak fluently about it. You are a great mind. That's why you call yourself All Mental. You are a great mind when it comes to hip hop because the things that swirl around in the spiritual cavity that you call your brain are very instrumental in not only helping people think, but helping people consider as well as hash new thoughts. And I ask you, matter of fact, I'm actually like asking you, like in like not begging, but asking, and the pleading is that do not let your knowledge and wealth of creativity just be for the radio. Salute to any radio station that you go to and whatever. But at the end of the day, always know that what you say and what you do is important. And that's why it's important for you guys out there that's watching or listening to connect with All Mental on his social media and follow him at the radio station, because at the end of the day, if hip hop is what you live, then these are lessons that are living lessons that you can always refresh and learn from daily. So we at Heritage Hip Hop salute my man who's here. And not only do we salute you, we also want the world to know that y'all can like us and like him too. We're not on that. There's only you Heritage Hip Hop only support us. We're about the entire culture. So if you want to talk to people who love the culture, you got me and you got this man right here. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, brother. I greatly appreciate you.
And with that being said, we come to the end of our time. So for everybody out there, always be moral, always be yourself, always love yourself, because in loving yourself, you show love to others. And whatever you love, people are going to love too, because it makes you happy. So if hip hop is who you are and hip hop makes you happy, remember that goes into your clothes, your style, your dress, your voice, how you do your art, and etc. And make sure you share it with the world, because the greatest MCs don't hold microphones. They live day to day and work regular jobs. With that being said, this is Karev with All Mental saying peace, and we out.
Yo, one love. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our presentation. We ask that you subscribe to our YouTube family and hit the notification bell for updates. Please like, comment, and share this video.
Real hip hop. Real hip hop. We here.